Now that we've completed our installation, it's time to do the programming of the system. Once I've plugged it in, the display will read the phone number which you're going to enter and the current time of day and the capacity remaining. How I do the program is very simple. I just press this down button for about 5 seconds. The display will say system check. I do down, down, scroll down. Of course, this is all in the owner's manual for your reference. The first thing I set is the unit size. This defaults at 1.5, which is this model. If it was a smaller model, I would simply adjust down or up for a larger model. In this case here, I leave it right where it's at. Now, I set the hardness. The hardness defaults at 20 grains. You set the hardness for your application. We'll just say it's 15 here. And I press the scroll button. And finally is the salt level. It's defaulted to the factory at a medium salting. Very rarely will you need to change this, but if you do, you just scroll with the up or down button to do so. The primary program is pretty much set. All you need to do now is go ahead and enter your phone number. So you'll simply arrow up to yes, and then you'll enter in the appropriate phone number for your location. Then you'll set the time of day, and then you have a choice. If you want to go to the advanced menu, you can, but most of the time, you're finished, and you can go ahead and just exit out. If I did choose to go to the advanced menu, I would simply arrow up to yes, go over to the scroll button, and I have a new menu. This first one is reset averages. That's the averages it keeps track of for average gallons used per day, average salt use per week, these type of information. The next one is my reserve capacity. It defaults at a variable reserve. This is a smart setting for the control because it uses the average daily use for 7 days in a row to tell when it's going to clean. If you do want to change it to a fixed reserve, you can simply do that by arrowing up and adjusting the value. I recommend leave it on the variable reserve because that's the smart setting for the control. I can set my regeneration time. The override is my ability to override the meter and use a calendar option to go every 2 days, every 3 days, or whatever my choice is. And then I can also adjust cycles such as backwash time, brine and rinse, and then I can exit. As I mentioned before, the advanced menu very rarely needs to be used. Most of the time, all you'll do is a standard 4-step program and then exit out the valve. And that's how easy the basic programming is on the water softener model. Let's talk about the information center. This is where you go on the control to find out what's been happening with the history. We simply press the up arrow button for 5 seconds, and it'll take us right to the program. The first thing it tells us is regeneration 0 days ago. This will tell me how many days ago it last cleaned. The next one will tell you how many days it's been in service. Then how many regenerations it's had during its lifetime. The total volume of water used through the system. How many gallons it used last time before it cleaned. All useful information for a service technician. The current flow rate. If I turn the water on in the house now, I can see how fast it's flowing. The average water use per day, what the hardness is set at, what the reserve is set at, regeneration time, if there's a calendar override set, and the current cycle times. These are visual only, just information for you as a technician or the homeowner to see what the system's doing. And it finally finishes off with an exit button and you're out. Now for the homeowner, their access, what they can adjust is very simple. What they're doing is just, they have 3 settings. One is just the time of day, and they just set the time of day up where they want it. The next one is regeneration in 10 seconds. If they don't want to clean now, they hit it again, and it will regenerate tonight at the program time, or just go back to the home screen. So for a homeowner, it's very simple. They really don't have to do anything with it. If the system does lose power, it does have a supercapacitor to hold the time of day and the program. The worst it will ever do is lose the time of day. The core program will always be there, and so if the power was off for a few days, they would have to set the time of day. If they forgot to, the system will still function normally. The time of day will just be off is all. And that completes your programming of the software system. Now that we've completed the programming, it's time to start the system up. The first thing we want to do is turn the water onto the system. The system, I pulled this bypass off so you can see what it looks like behind there, is on bypass. When I turn the water onto the system, I want to turn on the inlet water and allow the system to flush. It's very common on a brand new system, when that water first flushes in the house, it's going to have a color to it, probably a yellow or orange. That's common. After it flushes a while, we'll get that debris out. It's also a time to flush the whole plumbing since you've been there working on it to make sure we get all the air and get good clean water. Once the plumbing's flushed, then I can go ahead and test the system. Now that it's programmed, I simply have to press this scroll button right here, and it will say regeneration in 10 seconds. It will count down. Once it starts, I can press this button to turn the motor from lower speed to high speed. You'll probably hear that. Then it advances to that first cycle. Now that first cycle was backwash. What that's doing, the water is actually running backwards through the unit, fluffing all the resin up, getting it ready to clean, and going out the drain. So at this time, you should have water flowing out the drain, and let that run just for a couple of minutes to flush all the air out. Then I'm going to advance to the brine cycle. I get the scroll button again and goes to cycle 2. And now what it's doing, this is where it takes the salt water and sucks it out of the brine tank to clean the system. How we verify that's working properly is we do that from right over here. We simply take this tube off the side here from the brine tank, and it will have suction. You'll be able to feel the suction on the end of the tube if it's operating properly. And then, once you've verified the suction, we can advance to the next cycle. The final cycle, it does 3 things. It does a fast rinse, so you're going to hear the water running. It's filling the brine tank, preparing for the next salt cleaning. It's also backwashing the injector to keep it clean. But when it's filling the brine tank, I also need to verify it's filling it at the proper rate. So I will simply open the tank. I will disconnect the tube from the float, and I can see how fast the water is flowing. It should be at 0.5 or half a gallon per minute. Once I've done that, I can go ahead and I have to pressurize and test this system. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove the float assembly out of here so it's easier for the camera to see. But inside this tank, you've got a float system. And when the water's coming out here, I simply insert it in this, and I lift up on this float. That will pressurize this tube, and that way I know I have no leaks, and before I leave the house, the system will work perfect. And then the final thing I do is advance it back to home. The time of day will come back up, and the gallons remaining for the next cycle will be displayed, and of course your number will scroll across the bottom. And now you've completed the startup, and you're set to go.